Yasodanandana bhaja jananjana. Yasodanandana bhaja jananjana. Yamunatera vanacha. Yamunatera vanacha. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihar. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihar. Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari. Yasodanandana bhaja janaranjana. Yasodanandana bhaja janaranjana. Yamunatera vanachari. Yamunatera vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihar. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihar. This morning we will be reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature, text 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram cheva narottanam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jamuddirayat nasvesya bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevayam Bhagavate Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike Evam trivṛt-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ sva-ābhāsair lakṣito nena sat-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evam trivṛt-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svā-ābhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛt-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ sva-ābhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛt-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svā-bhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛt-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svā-bhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk evaṁ trivṛd-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svā-bhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk. Mataji's, please. evaṁ trivṛd-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ svā-ābhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk. Word for word translation. Evam, thus, tri-vṛt, the threefold, ahaṅkāraḥ, false ego, bhūta-indriya-manaḥ-mayaiḥ, consisting of body, senses and mind, sva-ābhāsair, by its own reflections. Lakṣitaḥ is revealed, anena, by this sat-ābhāsena, by a reflection of Brahman, satya-dṛk, the self-realized soul. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego, and then in the body, senses and mind. Purport. The conditioned soul thinks, I'm this body. But the liberated soul thinks, I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul. This I am is called ego, or identification of the self. I'm this body, or everything in relation to the body is mine, is called false ego. But when one is self-realized, one thinks that he is an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. That identification is real ego. One conception is that in the darkness of the threefold qualities of material nature, goodness, passion and ignorance, and the other is the pure state of goodness. The pure state of goodness called śuddha-sattva or vāsudeva. When we hear that we give up our ego, this means that we give up our false ego, but the real ego is always present. When one is reflected through the material contamination of the body and mind in false identification, he is the conditional state. But when he is reflected in the pure states, he is called liberated. The identification of oneself with one's material possessions in the conditional states must be purified, and one must identify himself in relationship with the Supreme Lord. In the conditioned state, one accepts everything as an object of sense gratification, and in the liberated state, one accepts everything for the service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness devotional service is the actually liberated stage of the living entity. Otherwise, both accepting and rejecting on the material platform, or in voidness or impersonalist, are imperfect conditions of the pure soul. By the understanding of the pure soul, called satya-dṛk, one can see everything as a reflection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A concrete example can be given in this connection. A conditioned soul sees a very beautiful rose, and it thinks that the nice aromatic flower should be used for his own sense gratification. That is one kind of vision. A liberated soul, however, sees the same flower as a reflection of the Supreme Lord. It thinks, this beautiful flower is made possible by the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore it belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized in his service. There are two kinds of vision. The conditioned soul sees the flower for his own enjoyment, and the devotee sees the flower as an object to be used in the service of the Lord. In the same way, one can see the reflection of the Supreme Lord in one's own senses, mind, and body in everything. With that correct vision, one can engage everything in the service of the Lord. It is stated in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one who has engaged everything, his vital energy, his wealth, his intelligence, and his words in the service of the Lord, or who desires to engage all these in the service of the Lord, no matter how he is situated, is to be considered liberated or satya-dṛk, a man who has understood things as they are. The verse again. Evaṁ trivṛt-ahaṅkāro bhūtendriya-manomayaiḥ sva-ābhāsair lakṣito nena sad-ābhāsena satya-dṛk. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, senses and mind. Om ajnana timrandasya jananjala shalakaya saksurunmitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah chaitanya-manobhishtam stapitam yena bhutale svamrabhakadamyam dadati svapadantikam Vandeham shiyo shiyodapādakamalam shigam vaishnavam sham Shri Rupam Jagajatam Saganragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Tyatpate Kopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kansna Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvare Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamama Hari Priye Vankha Kalpa Dravyasya Kripas Nivaivasya Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyaya Desatarne Srila Prabhupada Ki. So this chapter in the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev explains material nature. If we understand material nature, then we understand how we have become conditioned by material nature. And if you know how we have become conditioned, then you know how to free yourself from the influence of material nature and come to your false ego. Factually, it's simple that in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about false ego and real ego. That the only thing we have to do is we have to start acting according to our real ego, and that will purify us. Acting as a spirit soul, not as the body. This is the whole teachings of Bhagavad Gita. That in the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, chapter 10, text 6, real liberation is described. That muktir itam itvan yatarupam svarupena vyavastitihi. There it is said, real liberation is regaining your permanent situation. That a situation in which we are liberated, if we have given up the gross and the subtle body. And that, so that brings up the question, how did we become bewildered? Why are we acting out according to false ego? That in the first canto, Narada Muni asked his disciple Vyasadeva to write a Bhagavatam. But first he asked them to meditate on the absolute truth with devotion. And in this meditation, immediately he saw the spiritual energy acting and the material energy. And therefore, he expresses his realizations in 4 verses in the beginning of the 7th chapter of the first canto. And there he writes, Jaya samoito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nachtam tatkritam sapipachyate. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature, thinks himself a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So why do we think that we are the body? It's due to the influence of these 3 modes of material nature. that especially passion and ignorance, even goodness, binds us and makes us think we are the body. Although in goodness, theoretically we know we are not a body, that but it's also binding. That therefore we chant every morning, Naspaya Sabhatya Sunityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavata Tamasake Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. This is the method to get rid of the influence of this material nature. That you attend the Bhagavatam, daily the Bhagavatam class, which we are doing now, and we render service to the devotee, to the pure devotee. We engage in his mission. And then all what is troublesome to the heart is nearly completely removed. So that is mentioned in the next verse. Tato jastamobhava kamuloba sayasite sitere teranavitam stitve sattva prasidate. Then surely the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance is removed from our heart, because that is troublesome to the heart. This is our contamination. And then when it comes to goodness, that goodness is still binding. That one has to come to pure goodness. Krishna consciousness is pure goodness, is śuddha-sattva. And that, but we think, yes, that Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, aparyam itaspamyam pragatim vidime param shiva bhuta mabo chaitam dayate jarat. It said, besides this material energy, this gross material energy, there is and this subtle material energy, there is a spiritual energy, and the living entity belongs to the spiritual energy, but it wants to exploit matter, the inferior energy. And that exploitation comes about when we are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. And then these material modes start to work. It will be described further that before, in the second canto already, before Brahma started his visarga, his creation, secondary creation, that he created a material atmosphere in which the living entity, when their consciousness dovetailed with that material atmosphere, would become bewildered and identify with the body. So first he creates tamas, ignorance. Ignorance starts with forgetting Krishna. This is really a characteristic of this world. Everyone has forgotten Krishna. In the spiritual world, everyone remembers Krishna every moment. That's different. But if we forget Krishna, then we forget who we are. We forget our own identity. What is our identity? Shivera Svruparo Nitya Krishna Das. Our eternal form is that we are a servant of Krishna. We forget that. We become the enjoyer, not the servant of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya said, Gopi Bhakta Kamal Das, Anudas, Das. We are the servant of the servant of the servant of the lover of the gopis, Krishna. Very poetic, but that's what we are. And then, due to this illusion, the second illusion comes, called moha. Moha means, I'm the enjoyer. now I'm going to enjoy. But I want to enjoy that object, that and that. I want this to become mine. That's the third illusion, Mahamaya. And what's the result? Is, yes, tamishra. It's suffering. You are suffering. And at the end, under tamishra, you think, I'm going to die. That's the fifth illusion. One illusion grows out of the other. But the root cause is forgetting Krishna. Therefore, Krishna's main instructions in Bhagavad Gita at the end said, Manmano, think of me. That is going to reverse everything and dissolve all these illusions. So interesting is that in this verse 175, that where Srila Vyasadeva explains that why we are thinking ourselves a product of material nature. In that purport, this purport is very deep. Every line is so deep. And in one line, Prabhupada writes, the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditioned state. Interesting. We have a mind, thinking, feeling, willing, and we have intelligence, discrimination. But this is material, the subtle elements. But as a spirit soul, we have our own capacity of thinking, feeling, and willing. And we have our own capacity of discrimination, transcendental intelligence. So Prabhupada makes it very clear. He said once, you see this hand and this arm? This is a gross arm, gross hand, but beneath there is a subtle arm and subtle hand, the subtle body. And beneath that, there are the spiritual senses. So we are covered by these two material bodies, but we have our own spiritual body. The spirit soul and the spirit body is the same. There is no difference there. But it's now covered. But by acting as a servant of Krishna, we are activating again our spiritual body. It becomes gradually active again. And how to make it active, it's explained in the Purport by Srila Prabhupada. He doesn't mention it, but many verses in this Purport are just a rephrasing of verses. And the last lines, he speaks about a verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Prabhupada many times quotes in lectures. Iya yasya aredasya karmana manasa gira nikalash abhavastashu jivan muktasa uchate. So if you use your body, mind, intelligence, your words, all in the service of the Lord, everything, then you are imperceptibly liberated, because you act as a spirit soul, and by that you will become quickly liberated. So, of course, as long as we in this as long as we are in this world, that even if we act in devotional service, it appears through the false ego. The false ego is body. Body is false ego. The mind is false ego. material mind, material intelligence. But when we use it in Krishna's service, that will purify us from this false ego. And that you are imperceptibly liberated. If you always act in pure devotional service, you will become very, very soon liberated. And that imperceptibly. So, therefore, the pure devotees, they have a different vision than the materialist. That the materialist sees this world and sees everywhere opportunities to exploit and to enjoy. That the devotees see in this world everywhere the Supreme Lord. That's the Mahabhagavat. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmana Gavashtani Sunshev Svapakacha Panida Samadakshana. The devotee sees the Lord everywhere, in everyone's heart. That because that's reality. Because everything is the energy of the Lord. Everything comes from Him. That is the cause of all causes. And everything in this world are His energies, are the effect. The cause must be in the effect. Krishna is in every atom, between every atom, and makes everything work in this world. So a devotee sees that every moment. Therefore in the Purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, yes, we are a devotee always sees Krishna acting in his world, in everything he does. That's explained in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that's the self-realized soul, although is walking, sleeping, opening his eyes, closing his eyes, evacuating, whatever, he sees that the senses are engaged with the object of the senses, and that's made possible by the super soul, and he sees that he in fact really does nothing than only desiring. So in that way, a devotee sees everything. So it's important for all of us to understand this illusion of material nature and come out of it. That in the previous verses it's explained about deep sleep. If you are in deep sleep, then no material consciousness anymore. But we are still conscious of our self, of our real self, that of the spirit soul. Then we are in contact with our real self. And the pure devotee who goes in deep sleep is not only in deep sleep conscious of his own self, but also of the Supreme Self, which is in our heart. In the heart of the soul. It's clearly stated by Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, in a purport, and also in the Bhagavatam. Krishna is in the heart of the soul. The soul cannot be cut to pieces, but Krishna is still in the heart of the soul. That's inconceivable, it's translogical. And that is Krishna. He's not bound by the material laws. But it means we are a spirit soul. The only thing we have is our consciousness. And this consciousness, that's the symptom that life comes from the soul. But the activity of the soul is to be attached to desire. That's the activity of the soul. And by hearing about Krishna, we get transcendental knowledge. intelligence is filled with transcendental knowledge. And the soul becomes attached and pushes us forward to follow this transcendental knowledge, to act as a spirit soul, to act in devotional service. And so that requires transcendental knowledge. But factually, the soul does not undergo birth, death, old age, and disease. It's a false ego. And false ego is there when our consciousness is contaminated by these material modes. That from the moment this contamination is gone, we realize no fear anymore. That no fear, no false ego. That this is a quote from Harisari's Transcendental Diary, volume 2. They were on a flight somewhere in America to Detroit in 1976. Harisari Prabhu writes, "We had a momentary scare about an hour into the flight. The plane suddenly lost altitude, causing a dramatic change in cabin pressure. Passengers grasped in shock. My eyes rolled around in my head, and I became dizzy and a little alarmed. I instinctively looked at the Prabhupada, but he simply smiled at me, somewhat amused by it all." So that is fearlessness. Fearlessness coming from the realization, I'm not his body. And so this means that, and that is a key teaching of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Key teaching is we have to cultivate sambandha jnana, knowledge of who Krishna is, who we are, and what our relationship is. And then we come in the mood of a servant of Krishna. We become humble, we become tolerant, no false ego, give all honor to others. It has no use if all this honor, dishonor in this world, happiness, distress, it's all. One does not want wealth anymore, and one does not want followers. Does not want liberation. Just serve Krishna out of love. That is the factual realization. But it means that we have to learn to act as a servant of Krishna. Like in Harinam Chintamani, it's written in a dialogue between Lord Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur speaks about namabhas. There are in the chanting 3 stages. You have aparat, namabhas, and then you have Sudanam. So namabhas means we have to give up aparat, our offenses. If you chant with offenses, the effect of the chanting of the holy name is very little. So we have to come to anartha nivritti, give up these offenses, and that's called namabhas. Then our heart becomes purified. But this is a very important point. Rupa Goswami says, chanting of the holy name is a service rendered with the tongue. So we pronounce these names of Krishna with great attention as a service to the Supreme Lord. We are the servant of the holy name. So, therefore, to become purified, Haridas Thakur there makes it very clear. You can only enter namabhas, you can only become really purified when when you chant with sambandha jnana, a knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. So it's good always before chanting before doing our japa, to meditate on that. That we can meditate on it. You can make your own prayer. You can pray to Krishna. Oh Krishna, I'm in this, somewhere or other I arrived in this material world because I did not follow your laws. Please forgive me. From now on, I will be an exemplary devotee. That please help me. That I got information from the devotees now that my real home is the spiritual world. And I have my family there, my eternal family. They are waiting for me. I'm losing my time here in this world, in this material, rotting material world. That so please, please, engage me in your service, that I can be reinstated in my original position as your servant and go back to the spiritual world. So that is the humble mode of a devotee. That is sambandha jnana. It's not so difficult. We can make our own prayers. There are also standard prayers in that regard. That the greatest standard prayer is śuddha-sattva. That especially the fourth verse. Nadanam na janam na sundram kavta vashi isike kamayi mama chamami chamamishvai bhavta bhakti ahai to get for you. Not I don't want followers. I don't want association with women. That I don't want wealth. I don't want liberation. Please give me your devotional service. Birth after birth. Place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. That's a beautiful prayer. It's the same. This is sambandha jnana. And that is what the spiritual master gives us. Sambandha jnana. That is what the Bhagavatam offers us. And Prabhupada describes it so beautiful here in the Purport. That because if we are situated in false ego, we get a position of authority in this world, then most people become bewildered. They are thinking they are becoming important. That you come at the border and you have an immigration officer and he's going to check you. So false ego means wanting to exploit one's situation, becoming egoistic. That's false ego. That real ego is about real love. That's all what we want. We want to give love, receive love. But do we get that really in this world? That not really. That we are eternal souls. We have consciousness, we have desire, but our only possession, our only factual possession, what we have is Krishna. That's the only relationship really we have. We went to so many births, and we had so many parents, children, so many relationships. It all comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. That everything changes in this world, but one relationship can never be broken. It's our relationship with Krishna. We can only forget it. That's the only thing, but it cannot be broken. Prabhupada arrived in America and a journalist came to him and asked, "What is your mission?" Prabhupada said, "I'm coming to remind you what you have forgotten." So that is Prabhupada ki jai. So, any comments, questions, please?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned that Hari Savri Prabhu, in the aircraft there is a drop. I experienced that from Mumbai to Calcutta. The same thing, though I was not chanting that time. And then when it dropped, there was a very big roar inside, but the fear was there. I also was fearing what's next like. So then I started to chant nourishing there like that. How can we overcome fear like Srila Prabhupada?
The answer is simple. You will be able to overcome fear when the heart is pure. As long as there is any tinge of passion and ignorance, even goodness, you will feel fearful. So when one is purified, then there is no fear, there is no pain. When Prabhupada, during his last visit at the Bhakti-Vedanta, he was very sick. His body was sick. You can see in these pictures when he came down on a palanquin to take darshan of Radha Gokulananda with these big glasses. When he was lying in bed, a devotee asked Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, are you suffering?" And Prabhupada said, "I don't feel anything." So that is liberated. No pain, no fear, pure. But we cannot jump to that platform. But when we advance, we become less fearful. We are not like the ordinary people in this world. That we may be fearful, but when the end comes, we will accept it. We will be able to overcome. Good. Does that help? Something else? Good. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.